Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In yesterday's video, I revealed my Premier League predictions for the 2021-22 season. In this video, I'm going to be going from real life to virtual, fantasy to be precise, and I'm going to reveal my fantasy football team selection for Game Week 3 and also give you some tips on who to transfer in and who not to transfer in. But before we get into that, I would just like to shout out the Secret Shirt Association. Perfect way to build up your football shirt collection. This is where I got this shirt from, and the link down below will be in the description. Now let's start and get into the goalkeeper. So for me, the only real goalkeeper choice in fantasy has to be Robert Sanchez from Brighton. Realistically, you don't want to spend more than 9 million on your two goalkeepers. You should never double up on like two good goalkeepers like Ederson or Mendy. But for me, I have Sanchez for Brighton. Unfortunately, he is playing Everton this game week, so I do hope he doesn't get the clean sheet points. But either way, even if you don't have Sanchez or if you have more expensive keepers, I wouldn't waste your transfer or two transfers if you saved one on a goalkeeper. And moving on to your defence, obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold is a must-have. Probably I'm gonna probably keep him in the entire year, but I wouldn't waste your transfer on defence unless you're desperate. One mistake a lot of people are making as well is transferring in Tsimikas, because realistically, most people in Fantasy Premier League, all the casuals, they just look at who's got the most points last game week and they transfer them in. Tsimikas has done very well as part of the Liverpool defence, and I had him in both game week 1 and 2. However, Andy Robertson is back from injury now, and I'm guessing that he'll start against Chelsea. So do not make the mistake of transferring Tsimikas in. However, I do have him on the bench because I don't really feel the need to transfer him out. Reece James is also the 6th most transferred in player behind Tsimikas, but he does get rotated in and out of the team sometimes. He is a good choice though. And this week I would avoid two Liverpool defenders, which is what I've had both game weeks so far, because Chelsea is such a difficult fixture. And my defence this week, mine personally, is Trent, Luca Dean, although he has blanked so far in both game weeks, and Daniel Amati, which isn't ideal. I don't really want to use my transfer on my defence. I'm hoping Amati starts against Norwich and Leicester keep a clean sheet. But if you do want to transfer out Tsimikas or transfer out some more players like Stones, who hasn't been playing, I think he might be injured but I might be wrong, or any other player, then 3 good cheap options are Duffy from Brighton, Livramento from Southampton, and Jeffet Tanganga from Spurs. And moving on to the midfield, I think, the obvious options are Bruno Fernandes, Mo Salah, but I think they should already be in your teams. If they're not, to be honest, what are you doing? And also, Benrahma is a must-have. I'm so annoyed because in the first game week, in my first draft, I had Benrahma in, but then I took him out for Barnes. And Benrahma, so far, I think he's got the most points out of any midfielder in fantasy football. So I'm annoyed I haven't had him in. But he may or may not be in my team this week. May not be one of my transfers, but I'll get onto that later. But I think Benrahma is a must-have. Mason Greenwood, also a very good option. 8.5 million, can't remember which one. 2 goals so far in 2 games. And I think the most popular transfer to make in midfield would probably be Harvey Barnes to Benrahma, because obviously Barnes is blank so far in 2 game weeks. Benrahma's doing so well. However, I have not taken out Barnes, a bit of a spoiler for my transfers, because he is playing against Norwich. I think Leicester could easily score at least 4 against Norwich. Norwich are just awful, aren't they? So I'm keeping in Barnes just for this game week. But I have also brought Benrahma in, playing a 3-5-2 instead of a 3-4-3, which I was playing before. Son is also a good option if you want to bring him in. If you have like a more expensive midfielder that you want to transfer out, Son like Mahrez maybe or Gundogan, but Son's a good option. Watford at home should be an easy fixture for Spurs. And Rafinha is also a good cheap option. He has good fixtures, really, apart from Liverpool in game week 4, but apart from that, their fixtures are really good. But now, moving on to the forwards, I think the most obvious transfer to make this week is Antonio, because he is in such good form, obviously. Scored 2, assisted 1, I think it was, against Leicester Monday night. And West Ham's fixtures are also really favourable, like Palace at home next. But to be honest, I actually hope he doesn't perform for the benefit of my own placement. Antonio is always a good option to transfer in. However, if you do already own the likes of like Calvert-Lewin and Ings, or maybe even Callum Wilson, you might not want to make that switch. You might want to focus your transfers elsewhere, like in midfield with Ben Rama. But Antonio is obviously going to be a good option. And I have seen quite a lot of people transferring in Lukaku this game week because he realistically will back goals most game weeks. But for me, I'd wait until game week 7 because Chelsea's fixtures aren't that great until then. Then, game week 7, Southampton at home. Next week, Brentford. Week after that, Norwich, Newcastle, and Burnley. All of those games in a row. All of those games should be comfortable wins for Chelsea, and Lukaku could easily bag in all of those. If you do have Danny Ings, I would keep him for this week because Brentford, quite a favourable fixture for Villa. I mean, you can't underestimate Brentford. They made a good start so far. I do think Villa will win though. Ings got 2 in 2. I keep Ings, but if you are going to keep him, you have to take a risk because realistically, you do need to transfer him out next week because he's got a very difficult run of fixtures. He's got Chelsea away, Everton at home, not that difficult, but still. Man U away and then Spurs away. So I think Ings has to go next week if you do have him in this week. But I would keep him for now unless you desperately want Antonio in. It's a 50-50 as well for whether or not to trust Ivan Toney, who was blanked in both game weeks, unfortunately for me, because he was a very popular choice before game week 1, at the very start of FPL. But what I have done is I've transferred Toney out. Well, as you can see now, I've transferred Toney out for Obafemi to free up the funds to bring in Ben Rama in midfield for the 3-5-2, who will be coming in for Josh Brownhill. I just think Ben Rama, realistically at this point, is a must-have for West Ham. Like, they're on such good form, and him playing as a 10, like, he's going to get so many returns, and hopefully he'll play as a 10 for much longer until there is a possibility that Lingard will come back to West Ham, and at that point you might want to reconsider whether or not you want Ben Rama on your team. And I am happy with my transfers this game week, although I can see Toney bagging a hat-trick against Villa now that I've transferred him out. I'll be fuming if that happens. To be honest, might just delete fantasy. But anyway, moving on to the subs before I finally speak about captaincy. On the bench, I'm just going to run through this really quickly because I don't think it's that important. I've got Ben Foster, cycling goalkeeper. Then Tsimikas, still got him on the bench because he's that cheap. I didn't want to waste a transfer on him, even though he has gone up in price. We've got Ben White, who's injured, and Arsenal's fixtures just not great, and they're just a bit rubbish at the moment. And then finally, Obafemi, literally just a placeholder, never going to use him really. And now onto the captaincy options. And for me, this game week, there are 3 main captaincy options. You've got the obvious one, Bruno Fernandes, Wolves away. That's like, it's not an easy fixture to say, but well, to be fair, I was going to say they haven't made a great start, but they have been decent in their first 2 games. Unfortunately, they haven't even scored and they've lost both of them. But Bruno Fernandes, always likely to get a return. And you've got, I think, probably the most popular one this game week is Mikel Antonio with Palace at home, praying that he blanks. And then I think the best one, however, the one who's probably in the least amount of people's teams out of these 3, is Heung-min Son, Watford at home. I think he's a really good option. And now that Kane's staying, actually, you can probably add him into that category too. I don't know how many people have him in their team. I think he's been transferred out quite a lot. But if you do want to go for a differential this game week, different captain, potentially get some more points if those 3 blank, then I'll go with, I don't want to say this because I'll probably jinx him, but I'll go with Calvert-Lewin away at Brighton, or maybe even Danny Ings at home to Brentford. Or, I doubt anyone's gone for this, but Harvey Barnes away at Norwich despite the fact he's blanked in both games so far. Norwich are just that poor that Barnes could be a good captaincy option. I just want to say, I would personally avoid captaining Salah this game week because Chelsea is such a difficult fixture. Well, like I predicted, and finished second in my Premier League predictions yesterday. Go back and watch that video if you haven't already. But if you really think he'll get a return, then it's your decision at the end of the day. You can do whatever you want to do. If you want to captain Salah, if you think he'll play well against his former club, do whatever you like to do. I just advise you not to captain Salah for this game week. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I might make this a weekly occurrence now. Fantasy football tips for game week 4, game week 5, so on, every week. I hope that you have a good fantasy week, as do I. And let me know what you've decided to do in the comments below. Thanks for watching.